Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Committee of the Whole meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order at, it looks like 10 o'clock right on. We've got a couple of announcements that need to be made just before we start. When it comes to public comments, the public can submit written correspondence regarding agenda items by email to clerks@richmondhill.ca. And written correspondence must be submitted by 12 p.m. noon, one business day before the meeting. So any person who wishes to speak to council on agenda items must pre-register with the office of the clerk by 12 noon. So I just wanted to highlight that because we do have three people that have registered in time to be delegations, and we're going to hear from those three individuals. Now, regarding council announcements, our first item on the agenda, I just want to read from our procedural bylaw. And the announcements are intended to be related to a matter not on the agenda and may only be made by a member or by the city manager and discussed by the members at a regular council meeting, and only if it is of a congratulatory or condolence nature, or for the purpose of providing other members of staff with an update in relation to a cultural, recreational, or similar event within the city, or of a proceeding of an organization of which the city is a member. So all announcements shall be made orally in accordance with the order of business on the agenda. So with that, are there any members of committee that have a council announcement? Me. Okay, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much. Through you, the chair, I'd just like to extend a reminder to everyone that on November the 25th at Richvale Community Center, St. John's is hosting a CPR event where they're looking to train 150 individuals during our 150th year on CPR. So this is not a certificate course, but it will give you all the basics that you need to help save a life. So I definitely encourage people to take advantage of this free event. So you can get more information by going to my personal social media pages, or I believe we do have this posted on the city website as well. So thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. And next is Councillor Davidson.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to congratulate the Richmond Hill Legion on a very meaningful ceremony on Remembrance Day. The attendance was huge. It was meaningful. So many wreaths and families who have loved ones who have made sacrifices for our freedoms and democracy. And I've been thinking about it since, and I think, well, how can I maintain that? And I think people have died and sacrificed so that we can have the right of free government, free speech, the right to love who you want, any religion, and live the life free. And our duty is to maintain that, because Remembrance Day just reminds us all how lucky we are. So congratulations to the Legion, and thank you.
Thank you. Mayor West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I agree with you, Councillor Davidson. It was an excellent event and very well attended. So thank you for mentioning that. I just wanted to also announce that this evening from 6:30 to 8:30, we will be having the I Love Richmond Hill photo exhibition that I've been hosting and we've been working hard on. We've had all kinds of really spectacular photographs entered by a number of different people across our community. In fact, there's a fairly significant contingent of young people images, which is even more exciting. The photos are of places that people love and things that people love about Richmond Hill, but they're also really beautifully done. And I encourage everybody that's a lover of photography to come out tonight, and we will be having a couple of seminars as well on different topics of photography for those that come out and attend. So look forward to seeing you there tonight.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Silovitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everybody. On behalf of the Ward 5 Civic Engagement Committee, I would like to announce that tomorrow evening is our fall meeting to be held at the Richmond Hill Central Public Library. That's 1 Atkinson, in meeting rooms A and B on the 2nd floor. And the topic for tomorrow night's discussion will be led by York Regional Police, and everybody is welcome. It may be a Ward 5 committee, but we discuss things that are relevant to the entire city. And I welcome everybody to be there. The chair of our committee is sitting here in chambers, Mrs. Pat Pollock. Welcome. Thank you for being here. And I look forward to this presentation by York Regional Police. We'll have 2 officers there, and they'll be speaking about safety, our personal safety, our home safety, our car safety, and our family safety. So I look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Silivitz. Okay. I just have an announcement myself. Like Councillor Davidson and Mayor West, I want to acknowledge the wonderful Remembrance Day ceremony that we had. Our local Legion just does a fabulous job. This celebration gets larger every year. It was so great to see all the young people that were in attendance, the cadets, the Banshee Squadron, the Globe Masters, the Girl Guides, all the young people that participated. And it's so important that they remember the sacrifices that were made, not only during the First and Second War, the Korean War, Afghan War, and everyone who served this country and gave their lives, and that's who we remember. But also before we were a country, it was right here in Richmond Hill that farmers across the York region gathered and went down to Hogs Hollow and marched against, at the time, the British Army, which was the strongest military force in the world, and nearly half of them lost their lives, and that's the reason we have the province of Ontario, at the time Upper Canada, and democracy as we know it. They fought for political representation. They fought for the right to elect representatives, and knowing that they were outnumbered and outgunned. It's just wonderful to think that people living right here in Richmond Hill had above everything else, including their own lives, the fact that democracy is something to fight for, and that we remember freedom is not free. It's something we have to continually fight to maintain. So that's it for me. And Councillor Tree, you have an announcement.
Great. Thank you so much, Ms. Chair. Through you, Ms. Chair, to all the citizens here living in Richmond Hill, just for a reminder, from December 1st until 2024 March, it will be the snow season. So city will kick off the snow season. So don't park your car on the street without permission. So from December 1st, don't park the car. We're going to have another announcement. Yesterday, I saw the notice from city already. I'll send my newsletters. I'll encourage all the council members send newsletters. So give the friendly remindering. So stop parking the car on the street without any permission. That's just a reminder. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we move to the next item on the agenda, is the introduction of emergency or time-sensitive matters. Does anyone want to introduce something of a time-sensitive nature? No? Okay, so then I need a motion to adopt the agenda. Thank you, Mayor West. Any discussion on the agenda? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Okay, do any members of this committee have a disclosure of pecuniary interest? I see none. Okay, we move to identification of items requiring separate discussion. Anyone want to pull items? Mayor West, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to I have a couple of questions about on 11.9, the Blue Box transition update.
Okay, and Councillor Tree.
Yeah, Mayor already extract 11.9. That's on my agenda as well. also want to extract 11.3.
11.3, okay. Councillor Shu,
Thank you, Chair. I would like to pull out 11.5 for separate discussion. It's about 95 and 105 on neither present agreement. Thank you.
just 11.5 that was?
Yes.
Okay, got it. And Councillor Davidson?
I'd like to pull 11.8 stormwater rate changes.
Okay, that because of the delegation, we'll be discussing that for sure. Okay, 11.8, but I'll come to you first when we get there. And anyone else? Deputy Mayor
11.
Chan?
11.12, traffic regulation, changes speed limit, parking and traffic control. Thank you.
Okay, 11.12. Okay, I don't see any others. Will someone be willing to move a motion that for the staff recommendations in all the remaining items? Thank you, Councillor Silovitz. So you're moving the staff recommendations in items 11.1, 11.2, 11.4, 11.6, 11.7, 11. Oh, sorry, yes. Okay, so 11.1 and 2, we will hear from members of the public regarding those two. So the motion by Councillor Silovitz then is 11.4, 11.6, 11.7, 11.9, 10, 11.9 was pulled by the mayor, 11.10 and 11.11, and all of the items that correspond.
11.3 as well.
Yeah, we got. So not 1, 2, and 3, but 4
And 5. 11.5.
So it's 4, 6, 7, 10, 11, and all the correspondence.
And also 5. Excuse me. Yeah. 11.15.
We're pulling that out. Okay, so we're going to move the recommendations in 4, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, and the correspondence. 10, 11, and the correspondence. 4, 6, 7, 10, 11. Got that? Okay, any discussion there? All in favor? Any opposed? That carries unanimously. I think we got it, Mr. Clerk. Okay, so we don't have any public hearings. We will. Oh, it's snuck onto the other page there. Yes, so we do have a public hearing regarding tax adjustments under section 357 and 358 of the Municipal Act. So our staff has a recommendation. Is there anyone from the public who wants to speak to this item? This is item 8.1 is tax adjustments under section 357 and 358 of the Municipal Act. Okay, going twice. I don't see anyone. Anyone want to speak to this? Going 3 times? Okay, I'll bring it to committee. There's a proposed staff recommendation here. Anyone want to move that, Mayor West? Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Okay, thank you. Now we move to presentations, and today we have a presentation from Andrew Crawford as a planner, a second division planner policy regarding OPA 18.7, which is the Newkirk Local Center. It's a 10-minute presentation, and there's Mr. Crawford. Go ahead.
Okay, all right, thanks very much. Good morning, Mayor, Council, and also hello to everyone watching the presentation online. So my name, as mentioned, is Andrew Crawford, and today I'll be giving an overview of Official Plan Amendment 18.7, which is focused on the Newkirk Local Center. Next slide, please. So on our agenda today, I'll start by giving a recap on the importance of OPA 18.7, give an overview of all the public consultation we've done on this item to date, summarize some of the key points we've heard back from the public, provide a brief overview of the OPA itself and the changes that staff have recommended in response to the comments we've received, and then we'll wrap up by summarizing the next steps for this amendment. Next slide, please. So OPA 18.7 is part of the city's official plan update and what we've been referring to as part of the batch 2 amendments, which are focused on the future growth areas for Richmond Hill. OPA 18.7 will be amending policies in our land use chapter 4 of the official plan, and will largely be adding new policies and replacing existing ones that are related to the Newkirk local development area. Once in effect, this amendment will function similarly to a secondary plan for the area and will meet the official plan requirements for secondary planning for this local center. Policies are largely related to 3 themes: land use, built form, and public realm elements. Next slide, please. So to provide a brief recap on how we got to today, back in June of 2022, Council adopted OPA 18.3, which updated the city structure for Richmond Hill as seen on the map on the screen. The city structure is a long-term vision that directs the majority of growth in Richmond Hill towards the centers and corridors. So this approach is consistent with provincial and regional policy, which directs growth to where there is strong transit service and where there has been an investment in infrastructure to support the level of growth that is anticipated. As part of the changes from OPA 18.3, the area around the GO station on Newkirk Road was elevated from a local development area to a local center, and the policies of OPA 18.7 will implement that change as well as the other key directions that are related to the Newkirk area. Next slide, please. So to help develop OPA 18.7, the city has undertaken a very extensive public consultation process over the past year. Back in November of 2022, we held a public workshop where the vision for the Newkirk Local Center was discussed. And then we had initial meetings with a number of key stakeholders in March while we were developing the policies. The draft official plan amendment was released to the public on May 11th. Which was followed up by a public open house on June 7th and a council public meeting on June 20th. Both those events were really well attended and we got a lot of feedback from the public, which was greatly appreciated as always. And we also received, following those events, a lot of written and other comments received as well. So following those 2 statutory meetings during the summer months, staff have been reviewing all the correspondence we've received. We've had additional rounds of meetings with key stakeholders again, and made revisions to the policy before bringing the final amendment here for adoption today. Next slide. So while it's pretty difficult to recap every single comment we received in a 10-minute presentation to council, I'd like to highlight for council's benefit some of the main or recurring themes that we received, and more detailed responses to all of these comments are available in the staff report. So we did receive a number of requests to add lands to the local center, both from properties that are adjacent to the local center and from landowners located further away. We received a number of requests from landowners to increase height and densities, and we also received a number of requests to decrease heights and densities in the local center. And there were also some concerns raised that the amount of development being proposed was not supported by the current level of transit service in the area. On the built form side, there was general support expressed for policies requiring high quality urban design within the local center. There was a couple of requests to consider applying a lower angular plane of 30 degrees for the purposes of transition. And there was also some support expressed for protection of the existing rental apartment buildings in the area. And finally, there were also requests for additional parkland to be provided within the local center to provide and support for new residents. Next slide. So I'll take the next couple of slides now to review the main portions of OPA 18.7, starting with a look at the overall center. It's centered around the intersection of Major Mackenzie Drive and Newkirk Road, which is where the Richmond Hill GO station is located. The major transit station area that covers this area has a minimum growth target of 150 people and jobs per hectare. And with the height and density permissions in OPA 18.7, we would be looking at a long-term build out, of about 7,500 residents and about 3,600 jobs. Next slide, please. So in terms of land use and built form, like most of our growth centers, OPA 18.7 will be allowing for a wide mix and range of permitted uses within the Newkirk Local Center to ensure that services and amenities are available for residents. We also want to achieve the desired ratio of residents and jobs. We will be requiring agreed retail, commercial, or community uses in areas of the center. We especially want to retain jobs in this local center, given that portion of this area was previously part of the Newkirk Business Park. Next slide, please. So moving on to height and density, which is always a keen topic of discussion. The height and density permissions in the Newkirk Local Center have been tailored to the unique context of each portion of the area through the introduction of what we term character areas, which is what you can see from the summary table on screen. And depending on which character area you're in, the maximum heights range between 10 and 20 stories. And the same range applies for the maximum densities as well. So also note that there are no substantial changes being proposed from the draft OPA that was released in May. Transition to adjacent neighborhoods is also a key consideration of the policies of OPA 18.7. The maximum building height of, maximum base building height, I got to be specific on that one, is 3 to 4 stories, and as well the application of the current angular plane policies in the official plan will help limit height of the portion of buildings that are closest to the street as well as adjacent neighborhoods. Next slide, please. So public realm is also really important for this area to ensure that we're not just building a collection of buildings, but that we create a fulsome community in this area. So in that regards, we're proposing a number of elements and connections as part of the OPA. First up is an expansion and improvement to the existing Essex Parkette to both better serve new residents as well as the existing ones in the area. So while this is the only public parkland that we are proposing within the local center itself, we do want to recognize that there are 5 existing parks within a short walking distance of the local center. And there will be a requirement for new development to incorporate urban plazas. There will also be providing for open space and gathering places within the local center. So on the topic of streets, a new public street west of Newkirk Road will maintain connection to the GO Station platform and will be providing access to future developments in that area. A number of new and improved pedestrian and active transportation connections shown on the map there will improve access to the GO Station and to amenities and neighborhoods surrounding the local center. So once again, there are no significant changes to what was proposed from the May draft OPA for the final OPA in terms of public realm. Next slide, please. So I've talked a lot in the previous couple slides about the big picture items that have not changed. So I'll change gears a little bit and highlight some of the changes that we are proposing that we've considered through all the comments we've received and other discussions that have been held. So one minor change to the boundary of the local center is being proposed. Specifically, one small property on the western edge that contains regional infrastructure is proposed to be removed. This just aligns the boundary of the local center much better with the PMTSA boundary. Another policy that is related to allowing existing uses to continue is being removed from OPA 18.7 in order to reduce duplication, because the intent of that policy is already being covered through an existing citywide policy. So the build form section has a number of policies related to base building height, street wall, and transitional matters. Based on comments relating to implementing these policies, we streamlined them to focus solely on the base building height at 3 to 4 stories. This will help improve the readability of the plan without sacrificing protection for adjacent lands. And again, to improve clarity, we're proposing to remove the term mid-rise from the height policies and just stick to the numerical height limit. So overall, none of these changes are going to substantially alter the proposed direction of OPA 18.7 from the original draft. Next slide, please. I'll try to speed this one up a little bit as we're short on time. But moving into our wrap-up slides, today our council will be considering OPA 18.7 for adoption. Following that adoption, it will be submitted to York Region as the approval authority. Staff will then begin work on our batch 3 amendments into next year to incorporate or to culminate our work on the official plan. So adoption of this OPA will be an important milestone in the official plan update and allow the city meet its obligations under the Planning Act to conform with the regional official plan, as well as our other studies such as the Transportation Master Plan, Urban Master Environmental Servicing Plan, and the Development Charges Bylaw Update Project. And the final slide, please. I'll leave you now with our recommendation that council receive the staff report, that OPA 18.7 be adopted and the official plan be updated, and that a copy of the amendment be forwarded to York Region as the approval authority. Thanks very much for your attention, and I'll be available for any questions or clarification items that you may have.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. We will feedback here. We will begin with questions for the presenter. I think that's the way we'll do it. So if you could just limit your comments to questions only for the presenter. I see Councillor Thompson. Councillor Tree.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'd just like to get some clarification back on slide number 10 in regards to some of the planned lines that are shown on that slide. If we could possibly bring that slide up for a second. And I just want to make sure that I understand this. It looks like a light purplish color talking about planned bicycle facilities, like it says protected bicycle facilities. So those lines, is that like a trail network, or what are we looking at there?
There are a number of different dashed lines on the map, although dashed lines are the proposed ones. Sorry, it's a little hard to see from my vantage point over here on the monitor. Is there a specific line that you're looking on?
So I'm looking at if you come down from the northern boundary, well, first off, you'll see a dashed line that appears to be going right along Newkirk Road. But then there's also another dashed line that's intersecting across going east and west. And it appears that there's an off-road trail that comes to the boundary from the west side. And then it seems to go to a color that's talking about the planned protected bicycle facilities. And it looks like it's perhaps a trail that will now go all the way to Newkirk across. So that's what I'm trying to clarify here.
Yes, thanks for your questions and comments, Councillor, and through you, Mr. Chair. I had to cut out kind of some of the description of this map from my presentation because, as you can see, we went a little over 10 minutes. But in terms of some of the features that are on this map, there are a number of upgrades to active transportation, cycling and other methods, as well as walking, that are being proposed both through OPA 18.7 and the schedule and through the transportation master plan. So yes, we will be considering upgrades to Newkirk Road, which will allow for better protection for cyclists and other road users. As well, there are a number of trails and active transportation connections, such as a north-south trail along the eastern side of the local center. We are proposing an east-west connection through the center, which would include a crossing of the CN rail corridor to provide access to the GO station from the western side there, and that would hook into and connect to existing trails and connections to areas west of the local center as well.
Thank you. And through the chair, then, so it sounds to me that there is a plan for a connection that will cross over the rail track from the west to the east. And I'm assuming this is not just exclusive to bicycles. This would be also for foot traffic then.
That would be correct, yes.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there, but that's good information to know when we have the wholesome discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Tree.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a few questions. And the first one is regarding the 30 degrees angular plan. Is that going to be applied for neighborhood on the south side of Merrimack?
So staff have looked at, through council's request, at our council public meeting, staff did do an analysis of the angular plane. We determined that there was, it goes into a little bit more detail in the staff report, but we determined that we would like to stick with a 45-degree angular plane, and the other measures that we have implemented as well would help control transitional matters. such as the base building height of 3 to 4 stories. So that would limit the portion of the building closest to the street to that 3 to 4 stories, require a step back, and then the additional height of the building would be able to continue, which would have the same effect of a lower angular plane as well.
So basically transfer to another one is simple with this 30-degree angular plane will be approved, will be part of this OPA, right?
No, we are not proposing any changes to the existing angular plane policies through
Thank you
OPA
so much.
18.7.
Yeah, okay, I do have another question regarding to the Elmo Street, also the Success Street, also the SS Street. Now there are only single lines. So when we intensify those areas in the south side, there's only single line. Is there any changes in the future to enhance infrastructure over there? If we build up high building, high densities on the north or south side, those streets are only single line. You can imagine traffic will be very heavier. So because it's a local land, from planning department perspective, is there any plan to extend it to 2 lane to hold more traffic here?
I would have to defer specifically to our transportation staff in terms of what timing there might be to expand the roads. I believe on the map that we just had up for Councillor Thompson, that there were proposed improvements for stuff like bicycles and active transportation. I don't have the specifics, and it's kind of a little too granular in detail to be getting into the number of lanes in an official plan amendment. But I'm sure that our transportation master plan initiatives will be looking at that as well.
Can I ask this question to our planning department? If you have any 10 years, 5 years plan addressing those traffic concerns there?
For you, Mr. Chair, I don't have the details on me right now. I don't know I don't believe there's anyone here from our transportation department. Is Dan Trzewski online? I'll defer to Director Trzewski on this point then.
Mr. Trzewski, are you there? There we are. Okay. We can't hear you.
There we go.
Okay.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. Councillor, can you repeat the specific street in the question there? I just didn't catch the end of that.
Yeah, sure. The questions regarding to the plan for next 5 or 10 years is related with the street named as Elmwood Avenue, Sussex Avenue, Essex Avenue, which is north of Medjugorje, opposite of Goulton Station.
Essex and Elmwood, if I understood correctly. So there's no specific widenings identified through the transportation master plan, which we'll be bringing forward, I guess, through the next council cycle. For those types of street, they're both local streets, so we haven't really identified any improvements. But as was mentioned by our planning staff, there certainly is active transportation improvements proposed along sections of those streets as well. So hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, I got it. My next question regarding to the Medjugorje, I know it's not a cities, it's a really regional. So on that Goulton Station, just around 100 meters away, there is a school, elementary school. And now the traffic is restricted to 40 kilometers per hour. If you're driving along the Medjugorje, just from Bayville to Young Street, I don't know how many minutes I'm going to drive in a normal day condition. It's very slow, very packed. So from long-term perspective, if we put around 7,500 residents in there, that's going to be a net battle similar as Young Street and Medjugorje. What is going to be the solution from city's perspective to address that traffic concern?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think there's certainly the expectation that not every single household that will be moving into the area will have, 2 cars, 3 cars, that there will be, especially given the proximity to the GO station and to the future bus rapid transit line along Major Mackenzie, given the higher and easier access to rapid transit in this area, that not all not everyone will be driving every day for all of their needs. That there will certainly be people that will choose through the improvements that we're making to the pedestrian realm, to the active transportation network, that people will choose alternate methods as well. There will be, some increase. There will be some people that will have to drive, but we're especially hopeful and assuming that not every car or not every household will be driving for all of their daily needs.
Okay, thank you so much. Maybe I'm going to leave my last question here regarding FSI. I haven't seen any FSI marked down on the slide. If you look at the slide 10, I don't know the FS numbers. Is there any way you can put the FSI numbers inside of slide 10, which is just our counselor Scott Thomas asks. So slide 10, FS number inside that slide. Because so far I only see FS at 0.5 or 2.0, but I don't know where that's going to be applied for.
Okay, yeah, that is noted, Counselor. I think on slide number 9, we did have a summary chart. And there is also a schedule that is within the OPA as well that has a number of densities as well. I just didn't have that one as part of the presentation deck.
Yeah, slide number that only have that numbers, so it will not imply where those densities will apply for. If you apply for the south side near the parking lot, it might be fine. If you apply 2.0 to the south side, that might be a challenge. So I don't know if this is going to be the final slide, final decisions, but from the OPA official document, I would recommend it. You put those numbers to different locations. This way we know where going to be the intensification comes, right? Otherwise, it's general 0.2, 0.5, 2.0, who knows where it's going to be applied.
Okay, noted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I thank you for the presentation. I don't see any other questions from committee members. We're going to be bringing this item back later. First we are going to hear members of the public are scheduled to speak on it. We're going to go to the second presentation regarding climate change and sustainable development regarding OPA 18.8, the Oak Ridges Local Center. So this is Derek Lau, project manager. Mr. Lau, go ahead. And thank you, Mr. Clerk. So we do just need a motion to receive the previous presentation. Councillor Tree, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Go ahead, Mr. Lau.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Mayor West, members of council, and members of the public, both in attendance here and virtually. Again, my name is Derek Lau, and I'm pleased to provide an overview of the official plan amendment 18.8 respecting Oak Ridges Local Center that is before committee today and recommendation for adoption. Next slide, please. The overview presentation will cover OPA 18.8, including its intent, consultation process, and what we've heard. I'll also summarize the policy framework and the changes made to the OPA since the May draft, and we'll end with next steps and recommendations. Next slide, please. As council is aware, OPA 18.8 is one of the 4 area-specific amendments that form part of the city's official plan update process, which are being advanced at this time. The intent of the Oak Ridges Local Center is to amend policies in Chapter 4 of the official plan, which will update policies and replace existing ones related to the Oak Ridges Local Center. The modifications to the city's OP ensures that planning of the city achieves the land use vision for the area and that it conforms with provincial and regional policies. The OPA satisfies the requirements for a secondary plan for the center set out in the city's official plan by planning for land use, built form, public realm, and the continued environmental protections in relationship to the Oak Ridges Moraine. Next slide, please. I'm going to just provide a quick recap of the overall structure as per the previous presentation. The city structure was updated and approved by council in June 2022, which sets out where intensification is directed by a network of centers and corridors. In keeping with provincial direction, the city is required to direct and accommodate growth within the city structure, and this includes the Oak Ridges Local Center. Work on OPA 18.8 is also carrying out the key directions for Local Center as endorsed by council in February 2022. Next slide, please. Extensive public consultation has already occurred for this OPA. As per the previous presentation in November, the visioning workshops commenced, And in March 2023, initial stakeholder meetings were held, and the draft OPA was released to the public and prescribed bodies in May 2023. Since that time, OPA 18.8 has been available for over 120 days for review alongside the 3 other OPAs. And during that time, staff held statutory open house and public meetings in June 2023, and we have since reviewed and synthesized feedback received on the proposed amendment. In addition, staff have worked with the internal project team on technical matters and met with external stakeholders and landowners who requested meetings with the city respecting this proposed OPA. And this brings us to today. We're now at the stage of recommending the adoption of the OPA to council. Next slide, please. With respect to feedback, the city received submissions in response to OPA 18.8 from the general public, government agencies, landowners during the public comment period. Overall, feedback received for OPA 18.8 has been generally positive, and there's been support for modest levels of intensification in the Oak Ridges Local Center given its surrounding area context, supported by planned public rapid transit along Yonge Street. However, the city did receive some positive and opposing feedback on several key themes, including height and density, where feedback received from council indicating that the proposed OPA permissions respecting height and density were too high for the Oak Ridges context, and from the community and landowners that mentioned that the height and density were too low to enable redevelopment or investment. Respect to angular plane, staff received feedback indicating that the angular plane should be removed altogether, and with respect to the environment, staff received feedback indicating concerns to impacts of the Oak Ridges moraine, as well as some opportunities to look at how low impact development and bird-friendly design could be incorporated. Next slide, please. Overall, the Oak Ridges Local Center is predominantly delineated along parts of Yonge Street and King Road. The area is bounded by Bloomington Road in the north and Estate Garden Drive Old Colony Road to the south along Yonge Street and by Parker Avenue to the west along King Road. The local center has a minimum growth target of 290 people in jobs per hectare. With the height and density permissions of OPA 18.8, we will be looking at the long-term build-out target of 13,000 persons and about 4,700 jobs in the area, or a ratio of approximately 13 residents to 4 jobs. Next slide, please. The OPA's policy context sets out the land use permissions that allow for a mix of range and land uses. In addition, it also sets out requirements for non-residential uses to be provided at grade along Yonge Street to promote jobs and employment. It is noted that no further substantial changes to the land use policies in OPA 18.8 are proposed from what was set out in the May 11th draft of the OPA. Next slide, please. The proposed height and density permissions have taken into consideration the unique context of the different portions of the local center. As shown on the summary table and context map, in the northern area, up to 6 stories maximum fronting Yonge Street, between Bloomington Road and Black Forest Drive, Worthington Avenue, up to 2.0 FSI. In the central area, up to a 4-story maximum, up from a 4-story maximum, up to 8 stories maximum fronting Yonge Street between King Road and Black Forest Drive, Worthington Avenue, between 1.0 and 2.5 FSI. And in the south, from a 4-story maximum up to 6 stories maximum fronting King Road and Yonge Street south of King Road between 1.0 and 2.5 FSI. It should be noted that these are no substantial changes to these increases from the draft OPA released in May. As well, transition to adjacent neighborhoods is also taken into consideration with a max building height, base building height of 2 stories, as well as the application of the current angular plane policies will help limit the height of the portion of the buildings closest to the street and adjacent neighborhoods. Next slide, please. The public realm is also an important aspect of the update to the local center, and which includes ensures continued improvement to the community. In summary, new proposed cycling connections are proposed west of Yonge Street along Coons Road and Regatta Avenue, as well as east along Yonge Street along Sunset Beach Road and Old Colony Road, as well as regional cycling facilities planned along Yonge Street. OPA 18.8 is also identifying 5 new proposed parks, which reflects the city's parks plan approved in 2022. And this includes 3 neighborhood parks, 1 linear park, and 1 community park. Beyond this, 18.8 also encourages new development to contribute urban plazas, which are privately owned public accessible spaces to help contribute to the public realm and provide many of the benefits of public parks. With the expansion of the boundary of the local center along Yonge Street to Bloomington Avenue, a new collector and local road network in the northeast quadrant is also proposed, generally east of Yonge Street between Bloomington Road and south of Coons Road to accommodate the new planned growth in this area. Once again, there are no significant changes being proposed to the public realm elements of the OPA. Next slide, please. In summary, and given the feedback received, there are no substantial changes of this proposed OPA set out from the May 11th draft. In particular, with respect to height and density, staff are not recommending changes to the height and density permissions at this time. This means that the permissions for up to 8 stories fronting Yonge Street between King Road and Black Forest Drive, Worthington Avenue remains unchanged, and up to 6 stories fronting Yonge Street between Bloomington Road and Black Forest Drive, Worthington Avenue in the north and south of King Road in the southern portion of the local center also remains unchanged. With respect to the angular plane, no further changes are proposed. The current angular plane provisions that apply in the area are recommended to continue to apply. And where changes are proposed, they are considered minor and technical in nature, some which respond to feedback to improve readability and clarity, including removing references to mid-rise, adding the words design excellence and sustainability as key elements to the proposed gateway feature, and showing the boundary expansion from Black Forest Drive, Worthington Avenue north to Bloomington Road on Schedule A1. Next slide, please. This slide illustrates the OPA timeline and next steps. Since the release of the draft in May, we've gone through the statutory open house and public meetings in June. And over the course of the summer and fall, we've reviewed comments and met with internal and external stakeholders to analyze comments and feedback. Following adoption, staff will forward the OPA to York Region as the approval authority for approval and will continue development of the batch 3 OPAs, which will complete the OP update process. This includes housekeeping, employment, and the remaining MTSA and corridors work. OPA 18.8 and 3 other center-specific OPAs have been planned in conjunction with the city's Transportation Master Plan and Urban Master Environmental Servicing Plan. The growth projections of the local center helped inform the TMP and Urban MESP, and hence adopting OPA 18.8 will implement the 2 infrastructure plans. Furthermore, the advancement of the TMP and MESP will move the development charges bylaw forward. The city can then begin to collect the funds needed to support the infrastructure in these key growth areas. Lastly, the adoption of OPA 18.8 will help comprehensively guide development within the local center along this part of Yonge Street. Next slide, please. This concludes my presentation. The recommendation before committee today is to receive the staff report, the council adopt OPA 18.8 attached to the staff report, and the city's OP be amended in accordance with the modifications set out in the amendment. The following adoption, the city forward the OPA to York Region for approval. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Lau. Again, I'm going to ask committee members, if you have any questions, now is the time to ask questions, but we will deal with this item later in the meeting. Councillor Davidson.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I've been briefed by staff a few times, and I look forward to talking about it more thoroughly about the rationale for these changes. But I did want to confirm these height density changes, the 8 stories between King and Black Forest, these height and even 6 stories, these don't change the lower densities we have to protect areas outside of that main development area of Yonge and King. Is that true? Can you confirm that, please?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, the height and density changes proposed in the local center are related to the properties fronting Yonge Street. And so the proposed 8 stories and elsewhere along King Road and the rest of Yonge Street for 6 stories, the only proposed changes in heights are those properties, the areas fronting Yonge Street. There's no other proposed changes in height and density throughout the local center.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. I look forward to discussing it a little more later on, and I can move this. Do you want me to move this motion to accept? You receive it? Yeah.
Thank you. That's great.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Tree.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I just want to confirm, if I drive in now to the areas of this World War, I saw there are already 6-floor buildings on the Yonge Street, right? 6-floor buildings is already there. I saw it's almost finished, close to the Shopper Drug Mart, right? So from city's perspective, it looks like we are already approved. And also there are existing building will be finished with 6th floor.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mr. Chair. Again, the review of this OPA is for the long-term planning. And if there are current buildings that exist, then that type of building height would continue in that area. And that's what we would like to see ultimately for this area and for this local center. Again, this is a comprehensive plan for the larger area. And so the growth and height projections for this area intended to accommodate takes and balances both the context of the Oak Ridge's context, where it is generally lower density. There are environmental constraints required for it, but also takes into account the need for housing and growth in this area to promote economic development and investment. So kind of what you're seeing there may be the catalyst to what we hope to see eventually at full build out at the end of the plan.
Okay, I have another question regarding to this land on the east side of Yonge between the Bloomington and the Washington. It's actually in the northeast of corner. Is that belong to the greenbelt areas, or is that we treat it as a maybe corridor or maybe regional corridor?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mr. Chair. The entire area is generally within what we call the Oak Ridges Marine Conservation Plan. So there are policies for environmental protection, but with the different layers of our OP, the regional OP, the area along Yonge Street is designated regional corridor, and within our official plan is local center. So there are different permissions, but you do have to look at it in its full entirety in terms of what is permitted. But in summary, basically, there are checks and balances basically for what type of development occur. There is development permissions, but there are constraints that need to be considered for any development that occurs in that area.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Just a question myself. I'm sorry. I had Deputy Mayor Chan also on our list.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Lau, for the presentation. If you can help me to better understand on slide number 10, particularly the last bullet, new proposed collector and local streets, east of Yonge Street, between Bloomington East and south of Kunz Road. As I can see on the map to the right, at the moment, and I think that's what happens in the future, it's also continue to be parks and urban open space. Unless I miss it. Is that somewhere you can help? I guess you can show where about this proposed new rule may be. Just help me understand, through Mr. Chair.
Thank you for the question, through you, Mr. Chair. If we can bring up slide 10. Yeah. So
slide 10, yes.
Yeah. So looking at the map, in the top right-hand corner area, you'll see there's a couple of purple lines up there. And that is the current, at least preliminary road network being proposed to accommodate the new growth based on the expansion of the local center boundary up into that area.
Yeah, nothing is there now, I know.
That's correct.
That's where about that would be. Because I'm thinking about the house that to be in a way still respecting that area, which is really, as indicated in here, is open space. But thank you for clarifying it. We'll get to the OPA itself later on. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Lau.
Okay, thank you. So I have a couple of questions. The intended timeframe of this official plan amendment would be what? When would it be reviewed again?
So before you today, thank you for your question, through you, Mr. Chair. For today, we're recommending adoption of the staff report and the OPA at committee of whole to be brought forward to council.
No, I understand the scheduling for the OPA, but what's the vision of the timeframe? Is this looking out to 2040, 50?
Yes, we're looking out to 2050, sorry.
2050, so like the rest of the city.
Yes.
So there's no difference here. Well, there was a lot of concerns brought up on May 11th. Nothing's changed. It would seem this will do well to accommodate vacant lands, but was there any consideration given to the existing successful one-story commercial and retail, how they could possibly redevelop with these constraints, heightened density in a economical way in the near future, even the longer term?
Thank you for the question, through you, Mr. Chair. There's no any existing development or existing uses that are there are permitted to continue their operations until which time they wish to redevelop. Again, the framework put in place here is to align with both provincial and regional direction, and as well as the city's own work on managing growth and knowing the population and jobs that are coming to the city. So this is a forward-looking plan, looking at what is possible and what needs to be coming in the future, but there's no restriction here on existing operations or the viability of existing uses in this area.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Okay, so thanks for your presentation. We have a motion to receive the presentation. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lau. Now, we begin our delegations. The first delegation is regarding OPA 18.7, the Newkirk Local Center, is Courtney Mark from MBPD Limited. Courtney is online. Go ahead, Ms. Mark.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and members of Council. My name is Courtney Mark, a planner with Bahar Planning and Design Limited, here on behalf of our client and owner of lands known as 539 to 563 Major Mackenzie Drive East and 148 to 158 Maple Avenue. We have reviewed the Newkirk Local Center Secondary Plan and note that the delineated boundaries surrounding the Newkirk GO Station and properties fronting Major Mackenzie Drive East are intended to achieve a minimum of 150 persons and jobs per hectare. Schedule 2 of OPA 18.7 shows a corresponding boundary that matches the York Region boundary. Next slide, please. However, Schedule 1 to the City of Richmond Hill OPA 18.7 shows a smaller area as being subject to redesignation to local center. And as you can see, the red star at the bottom is where the subject lands are. As a result, we request that Council and staff reconsider the boundary discrepancy between the local and regional official plans. From a planning perspective, in keeping with the PMTSA number 50, we believe it is important for properties within the NTSA boundary and that front onto an arterial road to be included in Richmond Hill OPA 18.7. My client's lands are within 600 meters of the GO station based on the standard 800 meters as prescribed by York Region, front onto an important regional corridor, and are a significant contributors to the overall redevelopment of the local center. These lands and other similar exclusions provide an opportunity to generate appropriate development density near major transportation infrastructure. That is all, and thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Mark. Okay, next delegation, Gisela Imbronio from 6 Walkview Crescent regarding 18.8, the Oak Ridges Local Center. Afternoon, Mr. Imbronio. Go ahead. You have up to 5 minutes to address our committee. Someone could just zoom in a little bit on that. Be able to see it better. Okay, that's good. Okay, go ahead.
Good day. Staff and council, you have done a really good job on Amendment 18.4. However, a certain issue needs to be modified before I feel it is adapted within the Richmond Hill OP and before this bylaw goes to region for approval. When you see map 1, King Road and west side of Yonge Street areas are outlined in pink, indicating the areas now on this priority infill area. In the center of this large pink area is a much smaller area still in white and therefore not included in a priority infill project area. All around this white area on the north, on the south, to the west and to the east is pink, priority infill. The inside is not included. My question to staff and council today is, Why is this white area not included into the pink priority infill area of this amendment when it would really align with everything else in the immediate area? Why was this small area left out? It seems to me that by leaving out this white area, there are many points that are getting overlooked, not only in our own OP, but in accordance with the housing mandates issued by the government. Leaving out this parcel of lands, which currently houses a few residential homes on Parker Shaver and Hughes and a few businesses along King Road, completely missed the mark on the key points in your own document, and in particular, these ones here, where the purpose is to put into action measures that seek to facilitate the creation of complete communities within a 15-minute walk from home. This white area checks that. Municipalities should plan and accommodate and redevelop within existing catchment area to use land and infrastructure. The white area checks that. Provide efficient use of land through intensification and redevelopment. Check. Opportunities in our neighborhood for small-scale development is encouraged. Infill development will bring changes to existing neighborhoods. Check by that white area. When you go to 2.2.4.2, changing the density options from low to medium comply with many sections of the OP, check again. 2.2.4.7, your new preamble definition of priority infill area says with established patterns of residential development have the potential for new lot creation or medium density to have public streets established to facilitate future infill, check. New development contributes to the plan's residential intensification targets while using existing infrastructure. That white area has existing infrastructure. Therefore, this amendment should show a new revised Appendix 9 to include this white area not currently included in the shaded pink because it fits the mandates and it is the logical right thing to do. It also says that you need to have collector streets and lands proposed for development that are within walking distance to a public transit stop. Check. A street that is adjacent to an area designated center or corridor. Again, check. That's all in the residential part. With regards to the commercial, it also talks about we would be able to check existing commercial uses that are no longer viable to be redesignated in this infill area to fit the local needs and redesign. I could go on and on. I know my time is limited, but you know, the whole definition of your commercial development and how it impacts the areas respecting distinguishing neighborhood features to be compatible with adjacent surrounding areas to make it a true community needs to be checked with all your bullets. And we can do this by including the white area in with the pink infill areas. This is not a complete list of my concerns re this issue, and I am not as qualified as the professionals who worked on this amendment. And in my layperson capacity to follow this amendment, it is obvious that this small area fulfills most of the mandates required to be a priority infill area. It fits in with the More Homes Built Faster Act, fits in with the walkable streets and people places, fits in with the Richmond Hill Residential Infill Development Technical Paper, which has a ton of points I haven't been able to reach, and would certainly be an asset to the Oak Ridge's local center. This overlooked white area of the local center, after all this time, after numerous delays to address its place on the map and the multitudes of reasons, excuses not to revisit this area, now needs to be fully included in Appendix 9. Please consider it. I am asking council, will you make a motion now to include this white area along King Road from Parker to Schaumburg, including Shaver and Hughes, as a continued part of the priority infill area currently shown in pink, and thereby continue with the approval of Amendment 18.4, or will it have to be referred back to staff again? This can be finalized now quickly and effectively. There are no more reasons not to get it done, and now is the right time. Since I probably won't be alive when you get to the next review and adjustment of the official plan. So that's my presentation. I thank you for your time.
Okay, well, we thank you. Thank you for that. Excellent contribution to our considerations for today. I'm certain that member committee will ask these questions on your behalf, and we will get some clarification as to why the boundary is drawn as it is on King Road there, and when this item comes forward later, probably after lunch, the way things are going, we will seek to address to answer your questions. Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next delegation is Kim Empringham, New York Region Federation of Agriculture, regarding our stormwater rate structure review. Ms. Empringham?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, yes, we can hear you. Go ahead. You have up to 5 minutes to address council.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair DePaula and members of committee. My name is Kim Empringham, and I'm here today representing the York Region Federation of Agriculture as a member of the Board of Directors. The York Region Federation of Agriculture is a nonprofit general farm organization representing over 600 registered farm business members in York Region. We are farmers working for farmers on issues, legislation, and regulations affecting farms in the region, as well as decisions that would affect agriculture into the future. We are passionate and dedicated to ensuring that agriculture sector and our rural communities are included, consulted, and considered in any new and changing legislation that impacts the sustainability and growth of the agriculture sector in the region. I'm here to request a further reduction of the proposed $2.02 per 1,000 square feet for the agricultural land stormwater rate, as it should be lower than the vacant land rate. There are 3 factors that don't appear to have been considered or included as factors that were used to revise the agricultural land impervious factor and fee calculation. So the first factor I wanted to speak about was that most urban property types have been engineered to slope towards the stormwater drains, directing 100% of the runoff into the stormwater system, while the agricultural land has not been engineered to slope towards the wastewater system. In fact, there are many agricultural properties with a natural slope that does not drain off the property at all. Factor number 2, vacant land and agricultural land should not have the same impervious factor. All agricultural land, even land that is minimally tilled, has much higher ability to absorb rainwater than vacant, untilled land. Factor number 3, as noted in 3.1.9 of the Watson and Associates consultant report, agricultural soils are often improved with tile drainage. These 3-foot deep pipes are installed throughout the agricultural field. Tile drains increase soil water absorption and slowly filter the water through the soil to then enter the tile drain and eventually empty into the smaller percentage of the rainwater absorbed into the adjacent roadside ditch or river. Farm tile drains are stormwater management infrastructure that has already been paid for by the farmer when it was installed. Tile drains increase water absorption, prevent soil erosion into the city's stormwater infrastructure. It filters the water that is absorbed and diverts water from the roadside ditches and rivers until after the peak rain events have passed and the city's system is able to accommodate the filtered water in the system. For these reasons, York Federation of Agriculture believes there should be a further reduction in the proposed agricultural land stormwater rate of $2.02 per 1,000 square feet to bring it below that of the rate for vacant land. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. your comments are noted by committee. We will be addressing this item, and as a result of your delegation by committee, as it occurs on the agenda, in order at 11.8, and you know, it's duly noted. The agricultural is the one zone that wants to retain the water on their property in many cases and use it rather than other types of zoning that merely wants to, you know, get the water somewhere else. Okay, so thank you very much for that. As I said, stay tuned for that item on the agenda. Now, we will go to 11.1 now. We'll start through the regular agenda items, and the first one being OPA 18.7, the Newkirk Local Center. So I'm going to ask Councillor Thompson if he'd be willing to put a motion on the floor so we can begin discussion on that.
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to move the motion. I'd also like to make a few comments, if I may.
Very good.
Through you, the chair, I just want to get a better understanding on the boundaries. We're hearing, you know, concerns from residents in regards to the boundaries, both here today as delegates and also through correspondence received. And if I understand correctly, when it comes to the discrepancy of our boundaries between ourselves and the region or the region's official plan and our OPA, generally it has to do with the abutting land uses, if I'm not mistaken, and that and perhaps we could get someone just to clarify in general terms why we generally have this discrepancy between the two boundaries.
Ms. Flores?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The MTSA boundary that has been identified by the region as per direction by the province is generally the areas around major transit station areas. And it's there to identify lands where development is expected to support the transit use of that area, but it doesn't actually identify land use. That's where our layer comes in the local level. So where we have existing land use designations, we can distribute the density and the types of uses within that area that can still contribute to those targets. So where it doesn't match, staff have taken a look at the area, specifically where it is adjacent to low-level or low-rise neighborhoods, and have taken those types of factors into account, as well as land uses that are institutional and environmental as well. So that generally is the reason for the discrepancy.
Definitely appreciate the answer. Thank you very much. Through the chair, I'd also like to make sure I get a better understanding of, we talk about the 800 meter range for these transit areas. Is that not a radius, the 800 meters, or is that determined differently when we talk about 800 meters to the transit?
Through you, Mr. Chair, when the region delineated the MTSAs, they were instructed, as per provincial direction, to look at an 800 meter radius, which is, I always forget, I think it's a 5 or 10 minute walk. I always mix that up, but it doesn't include the planning authority to refine those boundaries based on other constraints within the area. And that's why you'll see it's not a perfect circle, even in the regional official plan. And so we've adopted the same approach.
So, okay, thank you. Through the chair, just so I'm understanding, you could be looking at it in terms of what it takes to get to that particular transit destination through existing networks that we have. So so we can't go as the bird flies just to get directly to that particular spot. Assuming that's correct, then this brings me back to the question I asked to the presenter earlier. about a walkway that's going, that will go over the train tracks. Because I'm sure you're aware that there's correspondence we've received in regards to a property on Center Street that, given what we just said about how we look at current infrastructure to get to the transit destination, but if there is going to be a proposed walkway to go over that, then would it not make that particular property potentially available to be within that 800 meter that we're talking about?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't know the timing of the walkway. You're correct. It is a connection that will allow mobility and connectivity, at least from a pedestrian point of view. I can't speak to whether vehicular traffic and other things were considered. I'm not sure if staff are able to speak to that, or if that's more related to, I guess, the transportation master plan proposals in that area. But you're correct. It could open it up, but again, those things can be revisited as development continues. And again, as we've mentioned before, the OP is a document that is reviewed every 5 to 10 years, and it is an iterative document as growth and development occurs throughout the city, where we can respond, as we've done in this round, where we've included modest increases as we've noticed more propensity in certain areas.
Right. And through you, the chair, I definitely appreciate that answer. So basically what I'm hearing is that there's nothing to prevent this from changing as we revisit, but also it's not going to prevent the applicant from requesting, say, an amendment at some future date if things are also changing.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. Property owners can put in a private official plan amendment application at their will.
And thank you. And through you, the chair, that could be the same for any of those properties that have been talking about the boundary discrepancies right now. If things change with those abutting land uses, again, they could do the same thing. They could actually come back and go for an amendment at that time. I think I'm correct on that. Okay, those are all my questions. Happy to move the motion to as recommended by staff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Thompson. So we have a motion on the floor to adopt the staff recommendations. Next speaker is Councillor Silovitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Councillor Thompson, for your comments. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank staff for the time that they've spent with myself and Councillor Thompson in discussing this particular area, which includes Ward 2 and Ward 5. I fully support what is before us. I support the recommendations, and the only public statement I'd like to make here today is that I urge all landowners, current applicants, future applicants, to please have regard for what is going to be, hopefully, prescribed in this particular OPA. There are valid and important reasons why our staff comes to the heights and densities that are portrayed, that we see on slide 9 for all the areas, but most specifically for the Southern Character area. So if you have an application before the city, or if you're going to bring an application before the city, I urge you to please, once again, have regard for the parameters that we have prescribed in this OPA. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Silovitz. I don't see others requesting speaker. Oh, Deputy Mayor Chan, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I know that local council already raised the issue about local Senate boundary and staff giving responses, but we also have correspondence that touch on that. Maybe that would be dealt with another manner. I'm just seeking clarification from staff through Mr. Chair. I'm referring to correspondence. Well, actually, we adopted already, I think. 11.15. So we adopted that. And there's also another party mentioned about seeking boundary changes, but I presume that staff have been looking at that already. Through Mr. Chair, just to get some guidance, or maybe something we can talk about at a later stage.
Flores?
Mr. Chair, sorry, could you, I'm not sure I'm understanding the question.
Okay, there's a correspondence under 11.15. Actually, I believe is the second one from MBPD. It's the same committee as one of the delegates, but I believe it's on different property.
I'm going to have to defer to the staff on that one.
Okay, so
just seeking some clarification. This is something.
Question is about the correspondence that is questioning the city's chosen boundary and maybe a response to that from staff to that correspondence that was added to the agenda as 11.15.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Hello through you, Mr. Chair. So there were a couple of correspondences that we received today, and there has been correspondences with other landowners in the area that we've received throughout the process. What we really wanted to do through OPA 18.7 was focus intensification at this stage to the area closest to the GO station, help develop that area closest around there first to create the walkable community closest to the GO station. And then we can reconsider at a further future date. If development in the center is going well, we can consider expanding it out. But it certainly doesn't limit, or OPA 18.7 does not limit the ability for property owners outside of the local center to expand at this point.
Thank you. Thank you for the answer from Mr. Chair. So I take comfort this is kind of wrong one. We can, I believe that's what I get a sense from the council. There's always opportunity to talk further down the road on that. I think that's my understanding. So on that note, I'm not pursuing this at this point in time. I just want to pay attention to that particular correspondence. And just a comment is the report is well done, in particularly talking about on page 10 and 11, it kind of relating to traffic and parking, but really Richmond Hill, particularly this area, is known for the as stated, high groundwater table in this particular area. I think that I'm just making this comment that got to be noted for any future, perhaps not so much for our staff, for post-development that we'd have to keep in mind because of that. So I'm glad it particularly highlighted, not only limited to hydrogeological studies, but also other reports that have to go along with geotechnical. In particular, people are thinking about underground parking in the area. It's just a comment, but I appreciate what the staff highlight that. And so whoever else reading this, thinking about supporting the creating jobs, increasing number of residents in the area should take note. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you for answer.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Chan. Okay, I too will support the motion, the recommendation from staff on the floor, but I have concerns about the boundary and why this particular boundary was chosen. Ideally, in my opinion, I think we should have expanded further north and taken advantage of an opportunity for other lands to be redeveloped, particularly those connecting lands to our Unity Park and our town park. And it's clear that our staff has contemplated the the pedestrian connections and bicycle connections and the fact that those parks could be well used by residents ultimately that live in this area. And I asked the question earlier. I think that we're going with all of these revisions, all these OPA changes that to year 2050. It's a long-term plan, and I think it might be a little short-sighted not to have included a property there that provides a connection between the drawn boundary and our large city parks, and that not be incorporated. And so, I agree with Councillor Zilovich. South of Major Mackenzie should be very limited in terms of what's intended, and very respectful of the existing neighborhood. But north of Major Mackenzie, there aren't the same considerations for incompatible uses with existing residential, and there already is some high density development. They had the foresight in, I guess, 70s or 80s to do it here, and we have much better hydrological methods, and we will put any future applicant to the test when it comes to how they're going to manage groundwater as they propose underground structures. So I have every confidence that we're not going to have another Cedar Avenue. That all those concerns will be addressed, but I think this is a real potential. Metrolinx has even posited the idea that the subway could easily come up to this location now that it's above ground and out. And the region is working hard to make the next BRT on Major Mackenzie and secure the funding for that. That's what's planned. That Major Mackenzie be a bus rapid transit. That this GO station is upstream from the subway. It's going to be a lot different from what it is today. The GO train itself could be improved. That might take a longer time, but now you're just 2 stops away from that proposed subway connection. So if we're taking that longer term vision, I think this is truly where we could have some significant growth in Richmond Hill. It's already been determined that this local center is high ranking on our priority for density and for growth. And I just think the boundary could have been larger as it expanded towards the north. And I'm hoping that we can take a look at that maybe over the course of the next week before this comes to the council. I'm hoping because we don't want to go into revisions. We want to get this right. We want to do it right now. We want to not put landowners in the position of having to go through a full OPA amendment. This is the one case where that 800-meter radius could really serve to coordinate development. The larger it is, the better coordinations we're going to have for transportation and pedestrian movement. So that's my concern. I hope over the next week we can talk about that, and we will revisit this at council. But for now, we've got a motion to adopt staff recommendations. Does anyone else want to speak to this? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? That carries unanimously, Mr. Clerk. Okay. So we do have time to go ahead. We'll at least start the discussion on the Oak Ridges Local Center. We'll go to 11.2. I'm definitely gonna ask Councillor Davidson to start us off. Is this local centers entirely within your ward? Go ahead, Ms. Davidson.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair, and thank you again to staff for not only presenting an OP that I think residents will eventually get behind, but for taking the time to explain the rationale. I'm interested, let's start with the resident who wants to know why that section of white on King is not part of the infill. Could staff address that, please, through you, Mr. Chair?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the subject property, from what I can tell on a Schedule 1 of the OPA, is part of our Greenway designated system. And at least part of it appears to be natural core, which includes a sensitive natural heritage feature and hydrological feature. So those are protected. She did make some points. Obviously, yes, that area is part of the local center designed to, promote some intensification. We've provided some modest increases, but that subject property is also still subject to the environmental protection policies, particularly of the Oak Ridges Marine Conservation Plan and our own Greenway system policies.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I also have questions about the section that is 8 stories. I want to say that Oak Ridge's Ward 1 does have 6-story buildings now, and I believe those were built through a bylaw, a zoning bylaw change. So we do have 6 stories. 8 stories, I'd like to ask through you, Mr. Chair, why specifically 8 stories from King into Black Forest?
Mr. Chair, the 8 stories fronting along Yonge Street generally aligns with where there are planned improvements for the bus rapid transit system along that section of Yonge Street, and that's why that was recommended for that stretch.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, can you tell me if I have a small business, and following up on the chair's question on my colleague, if I have a small business and almost all those businesses from King to Bloomington actually are low rise, they're bungalows, they're older plazas, except for the 2 big grocery stores. If I wanted to change that, if I wanted to make it still a bungalow but bigger, like if I want to make a change to the existing property, do I have to make it go up, or can I change? I just want to keep a store. I want to keep my bakery, but I want to change it a bit or make it bigger or put an addition. Does this limit people who aren't developing their property but want to do something to the existing business or building that is there now? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, the proposed policies don't prevent existing businesses from making improvements to their property. If they were to redevelop, then there would be some minimums if they are fronting on Yonge Street, I believe, to the base building height. So that generally would apply, but the existing businesses can still continue. I'm going to defer to staff if they can provide a little bit more insight on that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor, just to add to what Director Flores was saying, there are existing policies in the official plan that recognize buildings that may have been built prior to adoption of the plan. So the plan already includes permissions to allow those uses that may not conform to the height and density to expand up to 15%. So there is room for some of those businesses that may not conform to, for what you're saying, the minimum height, to expand up to 15% of the current GFA on the property.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. So if I have a small business, I can add an extension up to 15% without having to conform to going up at least 2 stories, 2 to 8 stories. I can, or if I have a large piece of property and I don't want to develop it, I just want my business to grow, I can expand the footprint or build on that business up to 15%. Is there any way, through you, Mr. Chair, is there any way to grandfather those properties so that if they want to expand their business 20%, this feels like a big demand on these people who may have been there a long time, these business owners who aren't interested in being developers, but are interested in growing their business. Is there a way that, unless it's going up or there's another use for the property other than its original use as a business, is there some way to allow them to grow without having to commit to residential and 2 stories? Or is 15% standard in the business world which I'm not familiar with clearly. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's a great question, Councillor, and that's precisely why that policy was embedded in the OP. It was to recognize that there may have been a form of development that did not conform with the OP. So when you look at strip development, for instance, that is one story, it's land extensive, lots of parking, that's not the forward vision that's prescribed in the OP. The OP is looking very long term. It wants to see a more compact form over the build out of the center, but it recognizes at the same time that there might have been pre-existing uses that does not conform to that vision. So in that case, that policy allows some flexibility for those uses to expand up to 15%.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair. So I assume, like all development, there is an opportunity also for businesses to apply and try to get a zoning amendment or make a change specific to their property. I guess I'm just trying to say there's some wiggle room for individual properties should something change and they want to expand their business. And I'm making a deal about this is because we really do need more businesses in Oak Ridges, and I don't want to handcuff some of the longstanding restaurants and small convenience stores and things that are already there. I would like to have them able to expand without committing to something much larger. But I'll talk to you about that this week before it comes to council. Thank you. Also through you, Mr. Chair, why the lower, I'm in favor of the lower density from Black Forest to Bloomington. That area is natural. There are natural areas there. I have to admit, between King and Black Forest, it's already pretty built up. And except for Russell Till Park, there's really no open green spaces. But is that green space from Black Forest to Bloomington, and would we be able to enforce that? Isn't it quite easy for a developer to say, well, it's 8 stories south of here, why can't we have 8 stories? Is this something we could actually enforce as a city through you, Mr. Chair?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if the policies are approved, that provides the framework and guidance for whether it conforms to the official plan, and that decision as to whether to conform to it or not is ultimately up to council if an amendment is proposed in the future.
Thank you. And I'm running out of time, but through you, Mr. Chair, can staff please reiterate that this means that the lands from east from Bayview all the way to the 404, south of Bloomington, all the way to Stouffville, those pockets are now still remain lower density, and in this OP as such are not changing.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the OPA before us today just is within the boundaries that have been delineated. It doesn't propose any changes to the neighborhood areas that you refer to. There are OP policies that affect those, but that's not what we are proposing today in terms of intensification.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I mean, the environment's very important to residents in Oak Ridges, and I'm done my questions and do I make a motion now to accept this report, or you want to do that later?
You may want to move the staff recommendations at this point.
Right.
Put
yes,
that on the
please.
floor.
Yes,
okay, thank you, Ms. Davidson, and we have Mayor West speaking next on this.
Thank you very much. And so thank you very much to the staff and all the public that took the time to comment and provide input on this. I think this is a good plan, and I think, frankly, the other parts of the OP that we've been dealing with lately have also been very good. I guess when I reflect on this, the expectation a lot of times, probably from us on council and certainly from some of the folks in the public, is that, this will be a perfect plan that will happen exactly as we expect it to, and so on and so forth. And the reality is that we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but this is a really well-educated guess as to what it is that we would like to happen and how we get there. So, I mean, we can talk a lot about the details of this plan, and some details maybe are more significant than others, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And we want to avoid that. We want to make sure that we know where we're going and roughly how we get there. I mean, there may be slightly different routes to get to the final destination. And this is what the official plan attempts to map out. I do appreciate in this plan, probably even more so than the other parts that we've been dealing with, that the staff has been very careful to make sure that the character of Oak Ridges and the natural environment of Oak Ridges is protected and maintained, and in fact, maybe even enhanced in some cases. But it's a balancing act between allowing the community to grow, investment to happen in the community, and the community to improve. And, you know, more shops, more services, and then balancing all the needs that we have with regard to housing and affordability, and all of the other needs that a society like ours would need as well. So I think this is a good plan. You know, we can talk about this forever and ever and talk about millions and millions of little details. But I'm not sure that that's necessarily productive after a certain point, because it will never be exactly perfect, because in this particular case, I don't think there's such thing. But what it does is it gives us the best guess that we can to get us where we need to go. And I think this and the other amendments that we've considered up to this point do that in very, very, very large part. So thank you very much. I'll be happy to support this.
Deputy Mayor Chan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Local councillors certainly make very good points, and I appreciate what the mayor is saying. I just want to add comment. This is one of the jewels of the city of Richmond Hill, given the natural areas and green spaces. So I'm really happy to see throughout the report and presentation the word about sustainability, the idea of environmental friendly, and it's good. In addition, that will be proposed, if I really correctly remember, new parks, and which is great. In specifically, I think the one aspect, I know maybe not the place in OPA, is a gateway. Quite often, you know, we talk about in the southern gateway, coming from south to north to Richmond Hill, but this is our northern gateway, where the Young, Bayview, and so on, Wilmington. So this is an area I honestly feel that I guess I'm not a professional planner, but I see the wording public art, whatever words will be removed. But I, for one, I would, as a non-planner, I would like to see in the future under this OPA framework and other applications come forward would really how to make those corners, intersections, our gateway to our city look nice. And as various speakers before me on this and other things, we are planning forward. 2041, I'm sure I won't be here. But that was based on what we know now. One aspect is kind of relating to the delegate, and there will be more development. Actually, some are already under development on King Road, not too far away from Young. So I guess that really looking down the road about the whole area, Young, King, and the region was doing something there as well. But maybe there's more to do infrastructure. But all those things need to get coordinated. But I personally attach, great significance to this. I still call it our gem in the city of Richmond Hill, in addition of others. Thank you very much. I support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. I haven't spoke to it yet. I'm having a little trouble with this one, with this OPA, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to support it next week at council, nor the motion on the floor currently. I truly believe that this council operates as a democracy, and the majority will goes forward. And I will always accept that, and I will always I'll allow that to play out. And if this council makes a decision and goes forward with this OPA, then I will be an advocate of the OPA. And once this council makes a decision, I will support the decisions of council. But just right now, I think in this case, it's a little short-sighted. I don't think we're taking the view of how important it is in the next 7 years to achieve residential units in Richmond Hill. We're really missing an opportunity in Oak Ridges. I think this OPA will not provide the opportunity. We haven't properly met the balance where it would be economically viable to meet the provisions of this OPA and redevelop older commercial properties. So that opportunity may be gone with, I don't see the need for first floor commercial when you're talking about Coons Road and Yonge Street. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to be walking there for retail, their retail needs. I think that could stand alone as residential, and all these impediments that have been voiced by the landowners to redeveloping or developing their properties, I don't think have been addressed. So I think we're falling short, and that's okay, because the vision that the local councillor has for Oak Ridges is important, and the will of council. I think I'm alone on this one, and my concern just comes from this being an opportunity to achieve some much needed additional units. If we don't hit our target, there's $200 million of funding that we're not going to receive from the province if we don't hit 80% of our housing target of 27,000 units by the year 2031. This is an opportunity where short-term development can happen, redevelopment. Yonge and Highway 7 is going to see very few units. There's ultimately 40 or 50,000 units in the around the subway when it comes, but it's not going to happen in the next 7 years. So as long as we take the view, and as a council, we have to determine where to put this growth. We don't have a choice not to accept the growth. We don't have a choice not to hit the target. So we just have to decide where it's going to go. And if not Yonge Street and Oak Ridges, we got to move. It puts additional pressure on the GO train stations, the major transit station areas, the other transit corridors. So it's just something to keep in mind as we go through the fuller official plan update process. So I'll be advocating much more strongly in other areas. I think there's a misconception. We have fierce environmental protections in place for 1,000 acres of protected land in Oak Ridges. And those, I'll be the first person to champion the need for those environmental protections to remain in place, and where we should never build in this city. But on Yonge Street, where the investment of infrastructure has been made, where we have bus rapid transit and an opportunity for redevelopment, we don't need 25, 30 stories, but an FSI of 3 would suffice to entice some people to redevelop older one-story commercial properties that could use a facelift or a renovation or a change. And got some great examples for the Oak Ridges Retirement Center and the medical building, and how nice it can be with 5, 6, 7 stories. So I won't belabor the point. I've gone on enough. My time's up, and I'm going to call the vote on this one. So all in favor of the motion? Okay. Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you. Now, we are progressing a lot more quickly than I thought, so we can continue to 11.3 and get a lot more done before we take a break. Just mindful that it's 10 to 12. So 11.3 was pulled out by Councillor Tree. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A very simple question regarding to 11.3. I do see the map. I cannot tell which street named as what. So Is there any way we can have a more detailed about which street has the name? Thank you so much.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if we might be able to pull up the appendix or the map. I think it's map 3 that might show where the actual street names are being proposed for the new public streets. Okay. I actually don't have a printed version.
Yeah, search, I could not find it. That's why I raised our questions here.
So as you can see through you, Mr. Chair, James Poland Drive is just to the north, so it would be just south of Jefferson Side Road. Moose Avenue would be sort of mid-block, and then right to the south there, the southerly limits of this draft plan, we've got Flower Court. So those are the 3 proposed street names.
Okay, thank you so much. That's my question.
Okay, you're welcome.
Yeah, I will move it. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So an item, Mayor West, you want to speak to that? You okay? You jumped the gun voting for it. Okay. So all in favor of the most staff recommendation in 11.3? Okay, any opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you. Now, item 11.4, we've moved. Councillor Shu, item 11.5.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regarding the staff report for the agreement between the city and the owner, actually, I'm happy to see that there's an agreement between the city and the owner. But referring to the staff report, it states that the agreement with the owner will allow the city-owned stratified parkland to be maintained to a higher standard than the city currently has. So I just want to ask about can any staff elaborate on what higher standard means? How might these improvements benefit visitors?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to answer Councillor Chu's question. So because of the way this walkway that exists on the stratified portion is located, doesn't go to any city destinations, for example, it would be lower down in terms of the hierarchy of how the city would maintain that piece of infrastructure. So like, for example, in the winter, when people want to come out of the parking garage onto that sidewalk to access the building or the sidewalk beyond, the city's crews wouldn't get there as quick as the landscape crews would for the condo corporation. And so that's what we mean by the higher level. The condo can do it quicker than the city can because it's not going to any main destinations other than the building, obviously.
Understood. And my another question through the chair is following the agreement takes effect, in which specific areas will the owner hold absolute authority without the requirement to notify the city? Is there any liability changes or?
No, there's the typical notification clauses with the typical amount of days. The city still owns the lands. And this encroachment agreement is a positive obligation on our lands. But if something was to come up that it wasn't being done to the city's satisfaction, there are clauses in there that cover the city off.
Okay, so all the costs of the maintenance will be paid by the owner in the future, but not by the city.
By the condo corporation, yes.
I see. Understood now. Okay, that's all my question. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair, and I'm happy to move it forward. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Shu. So Councillor Shu is moving the staff recommendations in item 11.5. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Carries again unanimously. Thank you. So we go to item 11.8, and that was brought out by the Mayor West. Go ahead. Oh. Sorry. Okay. 11.8, you're right. Councillor Davidson.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. In Ward 1, there are quite a few properties on vacant land, and I'm hearing from them. And one in particular is a church on a very big piece of property, and they're telling me that they got informed that their stormwater management bill is going from $500 to over $14,000. Through you, Mr. Chair, is this a miscalculation, or can staff tell me, are there actually going to be property owners that are going to get hit with massive stormwater changes? Because my understanding through previous meetings and information sessions has indicated that it's certainly not more than $1,000. It's certainly not, and for the average resident, it's under 200, but this sounds out of whack.
Okay, Mr. Scanlon or Ms. Lee?
Through the chair to Councillor Davidson, no, in the case of Summit Community Church, they will actually be paying under the new rate structure under $1,000. So it's going to be $917, which would be their annual fee. What's interesting about this property is that under MPAC, they're actually considered a farm property, not an institution. So with the farmland type property, we are charging at the farmland rate. It's also capped at 10 acres. So what they're going to be paying after this new rate structure will be in 917. And I add that they have already been paying this existing fee. So there's not a lot of change in terms of the use, or that it's not going to the $14,000 or $15,000 that's stated. And the other comment that I would make is through the public information session, as well as our special council meeting, we've noted that we are doing, based on this new rate structure, there will be some redistribution amongst the different property types, and we have provided that in the staff report. What's also indicated in the staff report is that going forward, staff are recommending that the institutions be charged this fee. So that would be the change that you're seeing in this report.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I'll take this offline after the meeting and we can discuss this particular property. My other question is, through you, Mr. Chair, is this increase a one-time thing and then we're going to live with this increase for the next few years, or is there another increase next year and the year after that? Because it does indicate here that we need to really catch up on stormwater. So we have to factor that in. It really is a tax, right? It's more money coming to the city from residents. I know we're going to call it stormwater, but that in addition to any tax rate increases. So I'm interested, is this a one-time thing?
We're definitely going to be getting into stormwater rates through the budget process. There's enormous pressure for us to increase that rate, but I'll allow our treasurer to answer your specific question.
Thank you.
Through the chair to Councillor Davidson. So this is not a one-time thing. What is one time about this change is we are refining the rate structure. So there is a redistribution of the rates amongst the different property types. As the chair has noted, through our presentations, we have presented to council the fact that we have been underfunding this infrastructure asset. So through the budget process, there will be recommendation, and that's actually a recommendation on the staff report as well, that we that council consider an increase in the upcoming operating budget. So definitely this asset group is under a lot of financial pressure. It's to be sustainable. There will be measures that need to be made going into the future.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. So we will discuss it at length later on with budget consultation. My last question is, can you please explain the reward program there was a mention of a reward program in all this. I'm not clear on exactly what that is or how we implement that.
Color TV for the first person to pay their bill. You have a
Good morning, councilors, Chair, Mr. Mayor, always a pleasure. I think that was brought up during our presentation, consideration of perhaps providing some type of reward for individual properties that have shown significant changes in the stormwater runoff on their properties. I think we responded last time that we will take a look at the program. The staff will work with that, and we'll recommend a dollar amount to be considered as part of the next year's budget. So it'd be a program that potentially would be considered for next year. Across the province, this is something where obviously communities try to reward significant contributions towards towards certain objectives. Not that everybody does this, but we have seen other municipalities doing similar types of things to acknowledge or promote efficient stormwater runoff on their properties. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know how much time I have. Oh, can you give me an example of what, do you mean individuals or bigger properties like farms? What's an example of something a resident might do to be rewarded?
It will be your policy, but I think the discussion that we have, by my recollection, was to consider individual residential properties to do it. We did discuss, industrial properties and credit programs and such. We discussed that. That wasn't our recommendation, but I think still to highlight individuals that are doing their, kind of at the forefront of improving their properties, should be kind of highlighted and kind of an indication to others to perhaps follow their lead. So,
thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So this is a year away, but in the meantime, I look forward to how the city is going to tell people how they can improve their stormwater management. So I think that might be a mystery, and we're going to offer rewards. We certainly need to help people get there. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Shu.
Thank you, Chair. I've noticed that there's no longer an exemption for the institutional land, and leading to a substantial stormwater management fee around 9,000 a year. So what's the rationale behind?
The rationale behind it is we did consider all types of properties. So this was ourselves in conjunction with our engineering associates, WSP. And through that process, we did an extensive, our firm did the extensive survey across all municipalities providing stormwater rates. For the most part, it's not something that's significantly offered. It's something that you offer as a municipality, the exemption. But, through our evaluation, through our discussions with staff, our recommendation is that they should be put on the same plane as other individuals.
Okay, I'm just through the chair. I'm just worrying about how this proposed rate scheme might significantly affect nonprofit organizations, like nursing homes, like hospitals, like schools, when they're looking to set up in our city. So, what about nonprofit organizations situated on institutional land? Are they eligible to apply for an exemption or have a fee waive, something like that?
So you had mentioned schools. Schools would be exempt. They're actually exempt under the legislation. So, but the other types of properties at this point we made, our suggestion is for them not to be exempted. And because they're not exempted, we haven't put a credit program or some type of exemption program recommendation forth.
Okay. Just only my comment. I suggest to include those non-profit organizations as well. We put it in the bundle and exempt them all. That's my 2 cents. Thank you so much. That's all my question. Thank you, Chair.
And Deputy Mayor Chan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councillor Shu. I was actually about to ask a question. I did raise that last time we talked about. I'm not comfortable with it. No longer exempting institution. I believe other members maybe might have similar concern last time. In particular, for I would gather like institution, faith institution, where churches, temples, synagogue of the nature will no longer be exempt. I saw the nodding just through Mr. Chair, just to get a confirmation from staff, if I may. School was mentioned, but not the institution for worship of different faith. For you, Mr. Chair.
Through the chair to Deputy Mayor Chen, that's correct. So it's places of worship and the hospital.
Yeah, I still remain concerned about that. But overall, I can see what we have been doing. Not only we are looking at this once, but over the times, and we're getting, I would like to use the word, more defensible, if that's the right term, but it's always a relative concept in the sense that what is being considered fair and equitable. Now, one question is not as clear to me, and help me understand through Mr. Chair. On the recommendation, on the face of it, I'm no problem supporting, although I already stated I'm concerned about the exemption for institution. On item D, it's pretty clear the financial plan they'll be studying or will come back to council maybe a year from now. But on the item E, I read that to mean that maybe later on this month or early December, when we're talking about the whole 2024 budget, would that be a timing when this 2024 draft storm water management services budget will come back along with the reward program? When is the timing? Is it later this year, or is it talking about also the third quarter of 2024? Mr. Chair, it's not clear to me, the item E, in terms of timeline.
Through the chair, in terms of timelines, we are coming back as part of the 2024 operating budget process for stormwater budget, and that's scheduled on December 5th. So as part of that meeting, we'll be coming back with recommendation to consider an increase to the rate, as well as including a budget for the reward program. The item D, that speaks to the longer term, the financial plan that takes us further down for long-term financial sustainability.
Okay, so thank you for confirming. That's how I read it, Ms. Lee. So E actual meaning that the reward program would be forthcoming in terms of the particulars in about within a month.
That's correct.
Correct. Thank you. So the last comment I would make, I understand from the delegate representing farming community, but based on what I'm seeing, not only the proposed is, well, we already cap it at 10 acres. In addition, as shown in the table, page 9, which actually are paying less, generally speaking, for farm and vacant land using the sample area. So I think that point should be noted. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Mayor West.
Thank you. So I guess starting back at the beginning of all of this is the need for us to properly fund our stormwater infrastructure, which is quickly aging and is becoming probably much more important today than it was 15, 20 years ago when a lot of this stuff was being built. We are having big storms, and the potential impact on a community that doesn't have a sufficient stormwater capacity is really major flooding to our own owned infrastructure. And if something terrible happens and it has to be repaired, we all pay for it as taxpayers, plus the inconvenience and probably more than anything, the safety of our citizens. And plus the potential for properties to get damaged, and that's a cost to the individual landowners. So it's what we're doing here is trying to create maintain a stormwater infrastructure system that will protect us from flooding that is happening more frequently now with climate change. The the whole, I mean, I get it. The idea of exemptions, it would be nice to exempt this and exempt that and all that kind of stuff. But because of where we're coming from on this, anytime that we exempt anybody, somebody else is going to pay for it. So I think we have to be careful. I get that charging some institutions that haven't been charged it before, might not be the most popular thing in the world, but I think we've tried to balance this so that everybody is paying their share, because every single one of us in our community benefits from being protected from major flooding events. So that would be my thoughts on that. The staff has done an enormous amount of work on this, and I think we're getting to the point where we're a lot more fair than it used to be. We're a lot more fair than the intermediate permutation of this. And I think we're at the point now where we've looked at other municipalities through Mr. Scanlon and his work, and Gigi and her staff's work, to make sure that we are fair, equitable, and comparable to other municipalities. And I think what you're going to find is that other municipalities will probably be using the type of work, if not the work, that we've done here in Richmond Hill as templates for what they're going to be doing in the future too. So I'm very happy to see this. I just want a minor question. This reward program, this is the program that I was speaking of, maybe mentioning about the other day, where we would be, not maybe financially rewarding residents necessarily, but acknowledging the fact that they've done great work on their property, and to use their experience as an impetus for other people to learn from and do improvements on their own property that will help to manage stormwater going forward. And that's what we're talking about, right?
Through the chair to the mayor, that's correct.
Okay. I look forward to that. I mean, I really see I think a lot of people want to do good things when it comes to landscaping on their property. And I mean, I'll take myself as an example. I mean, I've learned a lot through this process, but I'd like to learn what I can do as well. And if I get some sort of acknowledgement about that, to be the stormwater hero of my street, then I would be happy to do that. Maybe like a cape or something with, stormwater hero on the back or something. But anyway, something like that, I think, would be what we're looking for here. And I look forward to kind of seeing that program in place. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd be happy to move this along to council.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much. Through you, the chair, I do want to echo a number of things that the mayor has just mentioned, and certainly the fact that we're kind of the pioneers in this area. I mean, this is other municipalities will be looking at what we've been doing, and did we get it right off the mark? Obviously not. We are refining it, and it doesn't mean that it's going to be perfect after today either. I mean, but we are trying to make sure that we get there. Certainly, some of the grumblings that I've heard online had to do with increases that people are seeing in the table. In particular, one of them had to do with residential row and townhomes. And I feel I need to put this in perspective, because if you look at it, if you look at a 0.05 acre row or townhome property, currently, that sits at $21 a year. That's annually. What you'd be looking at is potentially $31 a year annually. The increase is not particularly great. So it's something that I would think that, making sure that we protect ourselves moving forward from the types of storms that we're seeing, thanks to climate change. I think people would be willing to certainly accept that type of increase. If you put it in percentage, it sounds really large, but if you put it in perspective in terms of what it is annually, you're talking less than $1 a month. So, and for those of you that don't know what a 0.05 acre is, and you're still imperial like I am, that's roughly 2,200 square feet lot. So just to put it in perspective. There was a question that came up through the Federation of Agriculture, and I'm not sure that this is something that we'd be ready to address or be able to address at this particular point in time, but maybe future as refinements occur where we might be able to actually ascertain this type of information in a manner that would make it easier to come up with the appropriate numbers for a particular property. And that was a comment that was made about tilled versus non-tilled properties. And I don't think that there's really a mechanism that we have right now that would be able to address that and give the type of individual rating that a particular property might want. But that may be something that could come in the future, if I'm not mistaken, maybe through GPS or something like that. But right now, administratively, that it's just, if we were to try and visit every property and do that, well, then that comes with a cost. So it would go up. So those are my comments. I'm happy to support this motion. Thank you very much through the chair. And I think you've got another person online.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Yu, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also want to talk a little bit more about the farmland. So the delegate illustrated a few factors that that they are different from vacant land. And what I'm seeing right now is they are equal to the vacant land. Will staff go back and review this through you, Mr. Chair?
I think it's been a pretty extensive rate review at this stage. Mr. Scanlon?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. We had retained as part of our team WSP, and the individual who was assisting us does most of his engineering work in the stormwater management area. What we were looking at with all properties is evaluating them, taking a look at different factors in coming up with that I factor. It's acknowledged that, generally there may be somewhat of a lower I factor on certain properties agriculturally, but not necessarily all of the portion of the agricultural property versus the vacant. When we take a look as well into the totality of the lands, there's 58, I think, in agricultural properties. And they are very large properties, and they've been capped at 10 acres. So to some extent, you could say, well, there's the I factor, but there's also the fact that they have very significant caps, whereas with vacant lands, so that's something like 89% of the agricultural properties have been capped. If we take a look at vacant properties, there's a couple thousand, and only about 1.8 of the vacant properties have been capped. So there's some different factors that are taken into the calculations, but specifically at the I factor, that's based on guidebooks, that's based on some evaluation of the actual lands, and it's the experience of my colleague from WSP in generating that I factor. And keep in mind, these are averages, like we've spoken to every property, they're averages, and that's the recommendation that we've provided.
Thank you. All right. Just one more question. I'm just wondering, so we are approving, staff is recommending us to approve this refinement, but eventually it will go to budget deliberation. Am I correct? Through you, Mr. Chair. Because I heard about, we'll talk more about exemption, we would talk more about reward program and all those. When would that conversation happen if we approve this today?
Ms. Lee?
Through the chair to Councillor Liu. So the staff's recommendation for committee today is to approve the proposed refinements to the structure. So when we talked about budget, that's a different conversation altogether, right? So what we are asking council to consider is to refine the rate structure itself. And the other part of it is what we've talked about, the long-term financial sustainability to make sure that we provide sufficient funding. That will be through the budget discussions as well as the financial plan work that we've noted for 2024.
All right, I
So
still don't quite understand. So this
In
is
the
not
budget, we're going to
So
talk about the
with
total
respect to
amount.
the exemptions and the discussions we've been having about institution exemptions, that's part of the rate structure. So that's where we're asking, and that's what we're recommending for today's meeting, not with respect to the budget. Does that answer your question?
Well, I think you do, but I think it's my problem. I don't quite understand the procedurally. Why are we not referring this to budget, but we approving the refinements, and then during budget we might change, right? Because some colleagues of any council, they think they might want to exempt institution. You know, they might want to implement a reward program. I just procedurally, I don't quite, I'm confused. So, but it's okay. So yeah, it is what it is. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so in my mind, our staff's done a great job reviewing the way that we apply stormwater management costs between classes in Richmond Hill, and there was some unfairness, and it was exposed that some property classes were paying more than their fair share. They've reevaluated that. They've done a great job, and I agree with this being the proper year to remove exemptions that other municipalities are not giving to certain property classes, to soften the blow. That residential rate is going to marginally increase, so that we can decrease the rate on other property classes that we're overpaying for the service. So I support the changes, and I support that this is the right time to bring in those exempted classes, because not only are residents going to be paying a slightly greater amount of stormwater management costs, the overall cost is going to go up. And that's what we're going to talk about in budget. That overall cost is going to go up, but the quantum here is a small number compared to the discussion about tax rate and your overall water bill. The stormwater cost amounts to 10%, about 10% of your overall water bill. So, a 10% increase in your water bill is a lot different than a 10% increase in your stormwater costs, as Councillor Thompson said. But when it comes to determining the amount of stormwater that's leaving a property and tying that into the cost, I don't think we should be doing that. I don't think we charge higher property taxes if someone drives too much on our streets, and their neighbor who doesn't drive gets a break, or any of our other services. Because stormwater is broken out separately, there's a tendency to want to do that, but it doesn't matter if you use a community center or not. You're paying the same amount, and we assess all payments and taxes based on property class. And I think we keep it like that, although a reward program and an education program about rain barrels and permeable surfaces and all those other things will be helpful. And I look forward to having that discussion at some point. So I support the motion on the floor. Any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Now it's Mayor West, who wanted to speak to 11.9.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we've been watching this Blue Box transition program coming down the pike for many years now. And, I was concerned a number of years ago when all this started, and I'm more concerned now that I don't think we've the Ontario government, who is responsible for this legislation, has necessarily hit the mark, and we're getting very close to the time where we're going to be making the transition. I believe this is in 2025 is our year. So I guess really the question I have is how much more ability do we have to address some of the concerns that we still have with this program? Like right off the top, I am concerned that there is a good possibility that our Blue Box program will happen on a day that may not necessarily be the same day as garbage collection. And I think that has ramifications for our community. I am concerned that it won't be us that's picking up the Blue Box material, but it will be a collector that isn't contracted by us. It's contracted by Circular Waste or whatever they're going to be called. But we're still going to get the phone calls when the Blue Box gets missed and this kind of stuff. So how much more ability do we have, or is the concrete set on this?
For you, Mr. Chair, I believe the latter is true. The concrete is set, but I will defer to the Director of Public Works Operations to offer some more information.
Okay.
Through the chair, we've approached all the entities that have been involved and referenced in the staff report. There are meetings, not only Richmond Hill has requested these type of meetings, but other municipalities. The concerns that you express and that are outlined in the report are shared across the province by all the municipalities that are in the same phase that we are at this point. The immediate or the most recent inquiry that we made was with respect to being able to carve out Richmond Hill and get an extension to the end of our Miller contract, which is in 2027. And as detailed in the staff report, that's just is not feasible. So we've recommended against that. But a lot of effort has been made to basically try to influence the process. That has failed. To try to get clarifications in terms of where we're going to be in 25 and 26. And a lot of that information is not fully available to us at this point.
Okay, let me think about that a little bit more, although it's probably not very much to think about. The other question I guess I would ask, and it's been summarized in the staff report, is there are also a number of other casualties, we'll call them, in this change. For example, super mailbox recycling, picking up recycling from the BIA area, that type of thing. Have we gone through a process whereby we're looking at all of these predicted concerns that are going to fall out here and determine A, how much it may cost us as a municipality, and B, how much what kind of a problem it's going to cause? Because I'm thinking about, just as an example, like the BIA, right? So, I understand why this is, but the BIA is a bunch of businesses, and businesses don't get that service if they're in a business park. But the reality is, if some sort of an alternative isn't provided to the general population to do recycling, they're not going to recycle it. It's going in the garbage. And that's exactly what we don't want to happen here. So I'm also concerned about that. Like, this is going to be, ultimately, this is going to fall on us, A, from an environmental point of view, but B, from a tonnage point of view, that we're going to be collecting in garbage as opposed to what might have happened in the past that's recycling. So have we come up with a plan on how we're going to deal with all of those things and what it's going to cost?
Through the chair, we share those exact same concerns. The staff report outlines the ineligible sources that are particularly on our radar screen at this point. We have started engaging our current service provider, Miller, with respect to some changes that would be required in our agreement with Miller beyond 2026. I would say that at this point that the financial implications of these changes are still unknown. A lot of municipalities, and I believe even the province, thought that at the municipal level there would be a net savings. We're not sure we see that right now, but I'd say the die has not been cast, and we'll know more by the end of next year.
Okay, so in other words, we're going to be seeing further staff reports outlining the details of this. Okay, do we have any sort at the moment? Do we have something prepared that outlines our top 10 concerns list that we could submit to whoever wants to listen to this?
Through the chair, simple answer is yes. Some of that is outlined in the staff report. There was even recently, there was a recent inquiry in terms of approaching various authorities to discuss certain changes, and we were turned away. At that point, we were told the focus is on an implementation, and from their standpoint, they look at an implementation that is quite complex given the scope of the work that they've undertaken, and so they're asking us to step aside for the time being. And discussions with respect to some of the issues that all the municipalities share will probably come back to the table at the end of next year.
Okay. So to be clear, is there anybody transitioning now?
Through the chair, yes, municipalities, Toronto, for example.
Okay.
All of York Region is at the end of the process, at the end of 2025. So January 1, 2026 is when we transition.
Right. But out of the 444 municipalities across Ontario, how many people or how many municipalities are actually under the new regulations as of this moment? Is it just Toronto?
I'll defer to the manager.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to you, the mayor. 1/3 of the province population is transitioning each year. So a third Toronto, London, those being the two big ones in 2023, and then transitioning 2024, and York Region in 2025 with the 1 million residents.
Okay. Do we have experience from them to draw upon what they've gone through?
It's through you, Mr. Chair. It's a little bit, maybe convoluted at this point because right now there's been limited changes. For example, Toronto's continuing on for these transition years. And then a new collection service provider will start in 2026 across all of Ontario. So these transition years, there's the options for municipalities to opt in and continue under their current provisions. So for example, in Toronto, there's a mix between in-house staff conducting collection and contracted services for half the city. That's continuing and that's allowed until January 1st, 2026, when it will all go to private service collection providers.
Well, that's clear as mud. I totally understand it now then. Right. He said sarcastically. Okay, I guess that I'm pretty much out of time. I'm going to talk to you at some point between now and next Wednesday and see if there's, it sounds to me like this is a done deal, but there's still so many concerns about this that I just, and it's all going to fall at our feet if we're not prepared to respond and or can't change any of the items. So anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor West. There's a motion on the floor. Councillor Davidson.
Thank you. I do have a question through you, Mr. Chair. I do want to say I too have a lot of questions and I'm worried that this is going to come forward next week and we're going to approve it, but I'm not clear on what we're approving. My questions are who's providing the blue boxes? When a street gets missed, we're the first people that get called. How do we follow up on that? I know there's a couple of mailbox blue boxes. That's really popular. Like I feel like I'm not clear on what we're going to be asked to approve at the next meeting, and I don't have enough information. Thank you.
There'll certainly be opportunity to ask those questions in between meetings. So you're ready for council. And Ms. Steele, you want to address that generally?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. To be clear, what you're approving right now is just that the city of Richmond Hill would not bid on the contract to continue providing the recycling services. And the reasons we wouldn't do that is because we'd have to be providing it for all of York Region, which is the only RFP that Circular Materials is offering that we could bid on. So that's all that you're approving now. We will be coming forward with further staff reports about how the transition for super mailboxes and non-eligible sources will happen. We'll have that staff report for you in 2024.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, so a motion on the floor by Mayor West, all in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, everyone. Councillor Liu had his hand up and I missed that. I'm sorry, Councillor Liu, go ahead.
No worries. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is very troublesome. I agree with all the comments from my colleagues. 2024 is just around the corner. We only have 1 year to do the transition, and 2026, like it or not, is the election year. So I think, we need more information. I hope that staff can come back frequently to update us. I understand that today we are not bidding for the RFP, but my question through you, Mr. Chair, is do we know if any municipalities within the York region is interested in bidding for this RFP?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm advised that to our knowledge, no.
Yeah, because there's no benefits of bidding for. So what if there's nobody bidding for this RFP? What's going to happen through you, Mr. Chair?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So our expectation is that a private company is going to bid on it, or multiple private companies will bid against each other.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And I'm sure our staff will continue to update us on this as it develops. Okay, we have a motion on the floor from Mayor. No, we don't, the clerk says. Okay. Okay, Mayor West is moving the motion. The staff recommendations in 11.9 here. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that carries. And now, final item, I'm choosing to soldier on, assuming we're ending imminently. Standing between us and lunch is Deputy Mayor Chan with his question on 11.
Thank you. With that introduction, I'll be very quick. Just 2 questions, no comment. On one hand, I'm happy to see that brought forward about proposed changes. On the other hand, I'm also wondering about what's the driving forces. And I get a sense that this is probably based on complaints of volume from the residents there, because if I can look at the speed limit reduction from 50 to 40, that table on page 3, maybe I missed one. It's almost all wards, except maybe 3. Councillor will let me know if that's the case. So first of all, just a confirmation. Is that driven by only those streets in almost 5 to 6 wards, if I'm right? Is by volume of complaints, or is it by looking at systematic periodic review of traffic data? These streets need to do something from our standpoint in terms of speed control. For you, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Nick?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I know that the recommendations in the reports are based on some resident complaints, but mainly on traffic studies that were performed in the various areas that are based on regulations and standards. I do also know that the study is part of the Appendix 1 in the staff report, back the information within the staff report.
Okay, thank you for the answer. Because from a consistency standpoint, for all users of local road, I mean, I'm wondering, some cities use the word vision zero, whatever it means, but general trend or pattern is to lower the speed limit. So in this case, some streets are 50, some streets are 40, and I think that's maybe something we have to look at. Do we want to look at fulsomely, wholesomely, all local streets to be one speed level, 40, but there's something to look at down the line. But I appreciate the answer. The other one is on parking. So on turning on page 4, and I would take it is also driven mostly by complaints or concerns from residents in those streets. Is it just to confirm through you, Mr. Chair?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think on that question, I might want to defer to Director Trzaskowski to answer.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Mr. Trzaskowski?
through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so all the recommendations outlined in this report are actually driven by inquiries and the staff processing those individual inquiries. So while they're driven by inquiries, all of them involve the technical assessments, and they are sort of case specific, these recommendations. To touch a little further on, I think your earlier comment about doing sort of area-wide screening in terms of speed limit, that's certainly something that staff are considering, and that is one of the recommendations coming out of our traffic safety and operations strategy that we'll be bringing forward in December. So stay tuned. That is something we are looking at to have a more proactive approach, notwithstanding that we want to not have speed limits have to be applied in a consistent manner based on the type of road and the usage of that road. So just keeping that in mind. So hopefully
thank you for the answer. I'm glad to hear that is something forthcoming. Maybe it's more uniform, consistent in terms of speed limit. I think helps everybody. I would happy to move for the recommendation then, hearing the explanation from staff. And I just want to draw out that we talked about Oneida Crescent early on, but this is another item on page 5 for people living in 75, 85, 95 Oneida Crescent to Oneida Crescent. But maybe the last comment, well, actually, I said I'm not going to say comment, but it is a comment. So residents, if you have a concern, raise it. Thank you. I'm happy to move the motion.
Okay, the motion's on the floor. I've got one speaker, Councillor Liu, and actually two, Councillor Thompson. Go ahead, Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Funny enough, when I look at Appendix 1, actually there is one recommendation from staff in Ward 3, which is from on Dunlow from Hillholme to Strathern. I just wanted to confirmation from staff that the speed limit there will be reduced from 50 to 40. Am I correct? No.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes. So if it's listed in the recommendations there, the intent is to reduce it from 50 to 40. Appendix 2 actually outlines where those speed limits are going to actually occur. So in a visual graphic.
Yeah, I understand, because I think the reason that Deputy Mayor is mentioning about there's no Ward 3 included is on page 3, the chart doesn't have Dunlow on it. So I just want to make sure that Dunlow is included in it.
Okay.
Okay.
Through the chair, we'll certainly take that back and make sure that it absolutely is included.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Thompson.
Through the chair, actually, I wasn't planning on speaking to this application, but since it got pulled, I may as well bring this forward. I've already spoken to the director that between now and next week that there will be a minor correction, and it is on page 4. And that is with the parking. It makes a reference to Creekview Avenue running between Arton Avenue and Yonge Street, of which Creekview does not run between those two streets. It runs between Arton Avenue and Elgin Mills. So it is correct in Appendix 3. It's just not correct on this table. And I think you'll see that correction before next week. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the motion on the, well, we're going to go to a second round. Councillor Liu, go ahead.
My apology. Just very quick question. So for all the changes, do we have a communication plan? How are we going to communicate, the changes to the residents? Through Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so certainly there is a communication plan. The intent is to notify them, particularly with respect to parking changes. With respect to speed limit changes, we sort of follow the process that's outlined in the Ontario guidelines in terms of pre-notification of speed limit changes with advanced warning or advanced notification signs. But certainly, we can take that back if there is an opportunity to do an enhanced notification beyond that. We'd be happy to sort of explore those opportunities with you.
Thank you. Just that, I wanted to communicate, with staff, so that we can have the same message, deliver out to the residents. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, Deputy Mayor Chan has moved the motion, the staff recommendations in 11.12. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously. Okay, very good. So there's no indication for other business or emergency matters. We don't have any closed session, so all it requires a motion to adjourn. Councillor Silovitz, any discussion there? All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Okay, thank you very much, committee. Meeting stands.